Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubbs at the Club, your University of Idaho affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined by co-host Dallas Hammer in the corner. Dallas, how's it going, man?
It's going great. West Ham won a trophy for the first time in damn near 40 years. So that was the highlight of my summer. And then they immediately became the laughingstock of the Premier League 3 weeks later. So it's been great, Brian. I'm happy to be talking Vandal football and something that doesn't try to rip my heart out at every opportunity.
I'm happy amateur hour already started, guys. Tubbs of the Club now officially brought to you by Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey. Joining us as the producer seducer, Marten in Moscow, the 83843. How's it going, man? You're in the heart of fall camp anyway.
Yep, doing good. It's Moscow's coming back to Moscow's getting back to the students coming back to town. It's good to be back on the show. There's Vandal football this month, and I am very excited for Vandal football to be back.
And our guest today, who is essentially going to be our anonymous source from now on, Trevan Pixley from the. What are you in the bowels of the Lewiston Tribune office right now?
Deep. We're in the basement. We're talking 4th floor. Yeah, we are in the basement of the Lewiston Tribune. But we are happy to be at Tubbs at the Club to talk Idaho football. Everybody's talking about year 2 of ECK, but Trebe is in year 2 of the Idaho Vandals beat. So,
yeah, which some people might say, "Hey, look at the coaching change." I say bullshit. Look at the media coverage. That's obviously it. But hey, we're in Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expedition, and look, I'm going to put you guys on the shelf for about 10 seconds just to get people caught up. First thing I want to hit is Media Day. And look, Trevan, we're essentially just going to be interviewing you about Media Day because you were actually there. But look, big news out of Media Day that people are paying attention to, Idaho fans should be paying attention to, is, hey, phase 1, the coaches preseason poll and the media preseason poll comes out. In both polls, Montana State was number 1. In both polls, Idaho State was number 12. But in between, and especially in the top half of the conference, quite a bit of variability. Marten has that up on the screen, but to slam through that real quick in the coaches poll, after Montana State at 1, we've got UC Davis at 2, Sac State at 3, Weber at 4, your Idaho Vandals at 5, then Eastern at 7, top 5, Portland State 8, Northern Arizona 9, and then Northern Arizona, Cal Poly, and Idaho State round out the bottom. Then the media poll, after Montana State at 1, Idaho comes in at number 2 in the media poll, including 8 first-place votes. Montana at 3, Sac State 4, UC Davis 5, Weber State 6, Eastern 7, and we're done talking about the rest of those because all we're here to talk about, because we're not going to dissect each other's individual polls. We're going to do that. We're going to do essentially that in our Big Sky Conference preview in a couple weeks. But look, the big thing here, it's an Idaho show. Idaho is 2 in the media poll, 5 in the coaches poll. Trebe, what did you interpret from that kind of gap between where Idaho was media-wise and coaches-wise? Because, hey, 2 to 5, that's the difference between essentially a seeded playoff season, media poll number 2, and being fringe playoff again, coaches number 5.
that was the most wild thing to come out of the whole entire weekend. I was caught off guard by that, but it's weird because it's so different, right? You explained it like that. It's either they're going to have a season basically similar to last year where they finish 5th, 4th in the Big Sky, or they take that step and they finish 2nd. And it's kind of, where are they closer to? Are they closer to kind of being that same team, or are they closer to making the next step? And I think the media with, you look at guys like Jermaine Jackson, Hayden Hatton, Giovanni McCoy, from people that aren't, on the ground in Moscow every day. And I think people that don't watch this team or covering it in and out, they see that and they think this is a team that could make that jump just based off of talent alone. And I think that's why you see the difference so much, as opposed to you got these coaches that are dissecting the Vandals. Obviously, they're going to have to play them during the season. And I think they can see their weaknesses more on paper and more on film as well.
Dallas, your takeaway on the gap between media poll, coaches poll spot for Idaho?
Man, I think it means that one of these groups doesn't know a thing, and I don't know which one of those groups it is. And that's I mean, we talked about it in the preseason of, let's say, the preseason of the fall, when we were kind of previewing football way too early at the end of last season. We didn't know. We don't know. I think that's kind of what the discrepancy is here. Obviously, if you look at the coaches poll, there's 12 points separating second and sixth place, so it is kind of a crapshoot of. There's these 6 teams that have playoff aspirations, and obviously Eastern, Washington, and Portland State, the rest of them are all hoping to get there. But realistically, you see 6 teams that are slotted in at either certainly playoff teams or fringe playoff teams, and there's too much ambiguity in what's going to go on. Much like last year, where so many quarterbacks turned over, and the conference, you just really didn't know what we were going to get. I think that's kind of the same thing we have here. You look at the top of the preseason poll, Montana State, UC Davis as leading the coaches poll. Makes sense. Tommy Mellott, Miles Hastings there, Giovanni McCoy. I would argue that's why maybe he's part of the reason that Idaho is number 2 in the media preseason poll. But really, it's just a crapshoot. The other problem is just scheduling. Idaho has a considerably different schedule than, say, an Eastern Washington does. Eastern might have a bounce back year, but they have a schedule from hell. And I think that also has a little bit to do with why these fluctuate so much. Some people go into these thinking, let's rank them by schedule and what I think they're going to be at the end of the year, or let's rank them like a power ranking. Let's say, Montana State's obviously the best team, Idaho State's the worst team, and then teams 2 through 11, or some people are going to rank them by neutral field, level playing field. What are we going to see? Or finishing how they finished at the end of the year. So I think that's what kind of this discrepancy comes from. There's not a guiding set for why you have to vote things or how you should vote for things.
Yeah. With the subtext of we all agree, we all know, and our listeners all know. Look, some of these polls, obviously they're done and the rosters aren't even set yet. So we understand, obviously nothing's written in blood here. So my takeaway is Big Sky media and Big Sky fans at large are sold on Jason Eck in Idaho. That's why Idaho easily fit into number 2 in the media poll, where there's a bigger gap in the media poll between Idaho at number 2 and Montana at number 3 than there is numerically between Montana State at number 1 and Idaho at number 2. That tells me that the people who report on sports, and also I'm going to say fans as well, because media personalities are at times, of course, little captive of the audience. They absolutely believe Jason Eck is the real deal, and they expect we're going to see pretty damn good results like we saw last year. I think the coaches are not yet sold on Jason Eck as being a top 2 or 3 coach, and I think that explains why you see where Idaho is at number 5, and you look at some of the teams above Idaho in the coaches poll. Like UC Davis. I mean, look, UC Davis didn't make the playoffs last year, but Dan Hawkins returned a lot of guys. And look, Captain 58 in the comment section, he brought up on his own. Captain said, I have Davis at 2, returning all conference QB in favorable schedule. I don't know how much coaches actually look at other team schedules when doing these, because I'd expect this is more just the coaches shooting from the hip, and maybe the media members are dissecting who is playing who what week. But I think some of the coaches in the Big Sky who haven't seen Idaho, or maybe the couple who beat Idaho, would help explain why Idaho's at 5 in the coaches poll. So the big takeaway for us heading into the season, of course, Treeb, is like Dallas brought up, hey, who's right? Is the media right? Buying into Jason Eck immediately, or the coaches right to have some skepticism? We're going to see. I want to ask both of you guys, just pivoting from Idaho for a second, because one of the reasons, in my mind, functional reasons for these preseason polls is partially to set narratives heading into the season for people to track. Treeb, give me the top non-Idaho narrative you see out of these polls.
I think it goes with UC Davis, and I think UC Davis has a very similar storyline to Idaho. They have kind of the same different, rankings between the media poll and the coaches poll. Dallas mentioned it earlier with the returning players. I think they're kind of in the same position as Idaho as far as what their storyline is. For Idaho, though, I kind of want to go back to your point talking about Jason Eck. That's going to be the biggest difference because Idaho does have holes, but the thing that's going to drive them this year is Jason Eck and the coaching staff. And they had holes last year. And that was the biggest thing that made them make that jump is the coaching staff. And when I sat down with like Jermaine Jackson, Hayden Haddon, they're talking about Jason Eck and the job that he's done. So I think they're closer to 2 than they're closer to 5 right now.
Dallas, top non-Idaho narrative from these polls.
To me, and it's unquestionably the biggest one for me, Montana. What is up with Montana? Obviously, Bobby Hauck is a great coach. Is going to be one of the best coaches to ever be in the Big Sky. I know he didn't win a national title, but 7 straight conference titles is a lot, even for what the Big Sky was 20 years ago. In his second go around, they have not won a conference title. I think it's very clear to say they are absolutely no longer the top dog in the state. It's Montana State all the way. You see the media poll, and Montana's still projected at 3. Brian, you and I talked heavily about Montana, thinking, look, it's Montana. They're just historically good. The coaches of Montana at 6th, and there are a lot of people in the Grizz fan base that are not sold on the second iteration of Bobby Hauck and the direction of the program, and specifically just his refusal to adapt or change. That to me is the biggest story, seeing, hey, maybe the coaches are onto something. Maybe Bobby Hauck has lost a little bit of that touch.
And I half want to go back on and talk about the Montana thing, because just the frame, how you understand Montana is, the perspective you're going to bring here is everything, because Montana had an objectively more successful season than Idaho last year. They won a playoff game. They hosted a playoff game. Idaho did not. But of course, I would rather have Idaho right now, their whole roster, than Montana. The storyline I'm going to look at is everyone has moved on from Eastern. No one expects, if you look at both these polls where Eastern slotted at number 7 in both, that is telling you that it is virtually unanimous. Everyone who pays attention to Big Sky football does not believe there's a turnaround coming at Eastern. They think they've just now settled into, they have more talent than the shittiest teams, but they are absolutely not good enough to be competing for a playoff spot. They're absolutely not a team that you should expect to be competing for a conference title. They've now gradually moved down in terms of prestige. To Eastern might be a team that can keep someone out of the playoffs with a win, an Eastern win, but there's no way to interpret this as any sort of vote that Eastern's going to be really competing for the playoffs. Want to talk about the all Big Sky teams real quick. So Trevan, look, the big news for all Big Sky teams for Idaho is, of course, Hayden Haddon is voted preseason all-conference MVP, offensive MVP. Defensive MVP was Winston Reed, linebacker from Weber State. Idaho representatives on the all Big Sky teams include quarterback Giovanni McCoy, running back Anthony Woods, 2 wide receivers, Hayden Haddon and Jermaine Jackson. Then on the defensive side of the ball, we've got cornerback Marcus Harris. And then special teams, we've got kicker Ricardo Chavez. Or Chavez. Trevan, I'll let you correct me in a second. Trevan, take away from the representatives.
Can I jump in real quick? What if we call him Kicky Ricky?
Kicky Ricky, I like that. I'll bring that up to him, actually. He's a good guy, man. He came up to me today. He thought I was interviewing him. He's like, what's up, man? I'm glad to be talking to you again. And then I had to pass him along. He said I was his favorite guy. So that was nice of him. Kicky Ricky's a good guy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, past tense, you were his favorite guy until you bailed on the interview.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Maybe he'll hate me now. But I think as far as the all Big Sky team goes, the all preseason all Big Sky team goes, I mean, it's the expected guys. I mean, there's nobody in here that shouldn't be in here, and nobody on Idaho's team that I think should be on the team, I think.
Okay. Dallas?
I don't have any pushback with the Idaho players that made it. I am tentatively excited and semi-shocked that Miles Hastings did not get the award over Giovanni McCoy for quarterback. Again, not saying that I think that Hastings should have gotten it, but it's interesting when you look back at the year Hastings had last year, obviously being the All Big Sky first teamer. Phil Steele, Phil Steele had, for anybody who doesn't follow Phil Steele goes through like first, second, third, and fourth team for every conference. It's insane. He had Giovanni McCoy as the third quarterback in the conference behind second Miles Hastings and first Tommy Malott. So, and obviously Tommy Malott last year came in as the presumptive MVP, and then the injuries kind of derailed his season a little bit. But very interesting to see that Giovanni McCoy was picked as the quarterback over both of those guys that have won awards previously. Very excited for that, and makes me feel a little bit better about maybe Idaho's projections if everybody else is thinking McCoy is going to be the guy this year.
Yeah, my takeaway is we're obviously only going so far into this right now because we do have we have Idaho's full season preview in 3 weeks and then week 1 preview in 4 weeks. But I think if you look at how Idaho has four dudes on the first team offense and 1 dude on first team defense, that essentially tells you the understanding of who Idaho is right now. Of the assumption is going to be that Idaho is going to score a ton of points, and how Idaho is defensively is right now up in the air. With my other asterisk being my other broad takeaway is, dude, there's a lot of names on here that actually were kind of surprising to me, but I think that's just because we had a bunch of stalwarts graduate and then a few first team all leaguers did transfer at the end of last year. So my follow-up takeaway is there's a lot of good dudes that you're going to get to see or at least notice, let's say, for one of the first time when you tune in to see Idaho play throughout the season, or if you pay attention to the other Big Sky games, which we do. So look, we've hit the basic teams. Now, Trevan, I just want to ask you now about the vibe itself in relation to Idaho at Media Day. I mean, from a distance, it seemed, just looking at the polls, seeing names like that, it looks like Idaho is kind of landed on the place that everyone hoped Idaho would when they initially joined the Big Sky. And hey, in the comment section, we got Kevin Marshall saying Media Day was a great event, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to chat with Treeb. Sucks that Brian didn't come. Yes, Kevin, I had childcare stuff, just couldn't be there. But Trevan, what was the overall vibe in relation to Idaho at Media Day?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all business on Idaho's side. I mean, Hayden Haddon and Jermaine Jackson are ready to hit the field. It's all go for those guys. And I think the biggest takeaway is that Jason Eck is open about Idaho's weaknesses. He knows where Idaho needs to get better at. And one of those spots is the linebacker position. And, right now with Sully Shannon leaving the team, that's going to be a spot where, a freshman is going to have to, step in and probably play a role there. So he knows that's a weakness. Obviously, the tight end spot, the offensive line spot. So he has a plan coming into this year. So I think the biggest takeaway I had from Idaho is that they're dialed in. They know what their weaknesses are. They know that the season last year was a successful one in the way that they put Idaho on the map for the first time in a long time. But there were games that they should have won, and now they need to be in a position to win those games this year.
So as far as so big picture, are you saying like, hey, the general energy relating to Idaho Media Day obviously trending upward?
Yeah, I would say trending upward, especially with the guys being in year 2 under Ack and having an understanding what's expected coming into this year.
Okay. I guess, hey, Dallas, before we pivot now, talking to Trevan about fall camp, which fall camp started on Monday. Any other Media Day questions that you have for Trevan?
Without obviously you've now seen the practices have started, so let's pretend that hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. Looking at this roster before this week, knowing the linebacker position is a position of weakness, who would you have thought would have been the freshman to step up? This is kind of a pretty big class, I would say, of linebackers, with both Jackson Eck, the not really nepotism because the kid can absolutely play and absolutely got offers from top 10 FCS schools, or X3 Alexander. People were shocked he came here. So there are multiple freshmen that are coming in very highly touted. Who is kind of the linebacker you were thinking that might be that freshman that could be playing and putting in some significant minutes? Obviously, Eck played a lot of freshmen last year. I think there's 52 new faces on the roster this year. There are some fresh kids in here that are going to have opportunities to make statements. You're muted, Treeb. It wasn't us. Yeah, it wasn't us, Brian.
It absolutely wasn't us.
Or maybe Treeb's audio is gone.
Trevan, what? Hey, I'm going to filibuster for a sec. Trevan, are you back? Yeah, Trevan is most definitely not back. So, you know what? Hey, we're going to give Trevan a second to reconnect. But Marten, can you get us that? Yeah, man, we got to get a word from show sponsor Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey. And look, this whiskey as a sponsor touches a very special place in my heart. It is easily the best Canadian whiskey that you can buy at store in Idaho. So what makes it special, what makes it different from other Canadian whiskeys is, look, it has a finishing process. It's initially aged in first fill bourbon in bourbon barrels, which of course imparts that wood flavor, some of that brown sugar, some of those notes that you love from bourbon, but then adds the corn flavor of Canadian whiskey. But it's finished in Oloroso sherry casks, which gives it an extra kind of candied cherry coat as well. And I just got to tell you, look, we know what a lot of our listeners have a favorite Canadian whiskey that they bring for tailgating. This Snake River Stampede is the one you guys should be looking for. It's what I buy it by the handle exclusively. It's unbelievably reasonably priced. Idaho state liquor stores typically retails for like $25.95. So grab yourself some Snake River. They're supporting Idaho. They're supporting your Vandals. By the way, the Snake River Stampede Rodeo is I believe it's the biggest volunteer-run rodeo in the United States. So they're doing a ton in the state of Idaho, and they're supporting our Vandals. Thank you, Snake River. So Treeb is not here. So Dallas,
I take that back. Treeb is back. Treeb.
Yeah, I think. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Cool.
So phase one, do you need Dallas to repeat the question?
No. I think I remember freshman linebacker that would get some playing time. Yeah. Bingo. So when Eck brings up these freshman linebackers, he mainly talks about Zach Johnson, who's a Lake City graduate in Coeur d'Alene, and X-Ray Alexander. And X-Ray Alexander too. Like I said today, I was able to catch the tail end of practice, and Monday wasn't able to go to practice. So I've seen very little so far of full practices during Idaho's camp, but I got to see X-Ray a little bit in person, and he looks the part. That's why people were surprised that Idaho was able to land him. Like, he is a talented kid, at least just by size and how he's moved on the field from the little bit that I've got to see him. So I think X-Ray's kind of got the lead. X talked about Zach Johnson a bit, and I think Eck too. Obviously, he had a good spring, and maybe Jason just doesn't want to bring him up for maybe nepotism reasons, but again, haven't been on the ground for camp much. We'll see where the reps break down as it develops.
Yeah, so just want to piggyback on that last point, Trevan, which is look, when Dallas brought up the topic, just because of the old Mason Petrino thing, like there are Vandal fans that have PTSD. I gotta tell you guys, if Jackson X sees the field, you'll see that he looks the part. So like the Mason Petrino thing, yes, it's part of Vandal psyche. It has nothing to do with that dude getting the field. I'm pretty damn happy Jackson Eck came to Idaho. I would want Jackson Eck at Idaho, even if Jason Eck was not our coach. So
to look forward into the future just ever so slightly, he was named the special teams player of the first practice. So he is producing in his role.
Yeah, I guess you guys hit it already, which is look, someone's going to have to step up linebacker wise because Paul Moala was the guy who's going to be on the inside, and he obviously was replacing Favai. So that's two all big sky performers gone from the roster. Trey Thomas is going to be, I believe he's expected to be like the leader in the line guy spot. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, Trey Thomas is going to be the guy that you see that name a ton called out. You're going to hear that name a ton called out, but that's a slot where Idaho obviously has to. We're going to see some new contributors this year. There's no way around that at the linebacker spot.
Yeah, defensive back too. Probably that's a loaded room. There is a lot of guys there, young veteran guys. I mean, there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah, and there's certainly some dudes at safety, which we're going to go in depth position wise when we get to the actual Idaho season preview. But to me, a real question was last year Idaho had Marcus Harris as a kick-ass lockdown corner. We needed more from Jeremiah Salam on the other side. Whoever is able to. If Idaho can get another stronger number 2 corner, that's a pretty damn big deal. And we're going to see that's another position that, Treve, as you see more fall camp, you're going to be able to tell a little more about.
And as you said, you'll hit on it, during the Idaho preview. And I don't mean to get more into, more Idaho talk, but there is some quality corners on that team right now. I mean, Armani Arnold is good. Dwayne McDougal is good. Cam Stevens is good. Like, these are quality guys that are, either new or taking the next step that Idaho did not have last year. And I think that's going to be a big bonus for Idaho on defense.
We do have one question answered relative to a roster spot from last year, which was Elisha Cummings had been off the roster. He's, of course, the number 2 running back, kind of number 2. He was the change of pace running back from last season, pass catching running back from Idaho from last season. He'd been off the roster. Without going into great detail, we'd been told Cummings was off the roster for disciplinary reasons. And Elijah Cummings is back on the roster, which phase 1. Well, look, I'm going to let Dallas react to that, but I think Elijah Cummings back on the roster should give some Vandal fans, if you're looking for reasons to be anxious about the team, I feel like seeing Cummings back on the roster is essentially a Xanax for a lot of fans.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Brian. I think one of the big question marks we talked about was, can the offensive line and defensive line grow and get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger in year 2 of the Eck era? Again, what are they going to do with the linebacker and pass rushing situations? And then really the only issue on offense as it comes to the skill positions was who's going to be the backup behind Anthony Woods, or maybe not backup. Maybe, somebody becomes a ball share committee there. But we were looking at Nick Romano. Obviously, he's been here for a very long time, had some very good moments, but maybe doesn't just quite fit with the offense that Eck is trying to put together. And then you're looking at a bunch of freshmen that we were all very high on. We talked about Art Williams, Carlos Matheny, and Day Buchanan as all guys that we thought looked really great on tape and could maybe do that Anthony Woods true freshman coming in, but not having to rely on that and knowing at the bare minimum you have Eli Cummings back as your number 2 running back. If one of those other guys steps over him, that's fantastic. If they don't, Cummings looked pretty damn good with Eck. So he looked pretty good with Petrino as well. So honestly, Xanax to the max here. Like, running back is going to be okay. All the skill positions are going to be okay. It's that offensive line going to hang up long enough for Idaho to score 45 on everybody. That's really what it feels like when you know that you've got at least multiple guys you trust in the running back room that aren't true freshmen.
Yeah, and if the offensive line, say is having a rough game or doesn't hold up, Eli Cummings is so good out of the backfield. I mean, they could just do some screens, quick releases. I mean, he adds so much more to the offense. I mean, it makes it so much more dynamic that, now that number 2, placement in the Big Sky poll looks even better for Idaho, I think.
Yeah, my biggest concern prior to seeing Cummings on the roster again was I just didn't want Anthony Woods to need 25 to 30, in between 25 and 30 touches a game, where he'd put up some kick-ass stats, but injury issues obviously concerned, or just simply wearing down by the end of the season if Idaho extends their season, makes it to the playoffs. Cummings lets me know that that's a little bit less of an issue. Jason Eck has separately talked about, another developmental step for Anthony Woods is going to be being stronger in short yardage situations. Woods wasn't really a pass catching back either. And Nick Romano, to me, I don't think he really complements Anthony Woods in the relative to those areas compared to Anthony Woods' strengths. Cummings, at the very least, is a strong pass catcher. Definitely is a strong run around the outside. Oh, he's fine on the inside too. He's a stout, strong dude. To me, Cummings is look. It's hard for me to sort all Big Sky running backs because Montana State gets so much damn yardage, and it's because their line is so damn good after years and years of development that just whoever they plug in is going to put up all Big Sky level stats. But Cummings is a guy who you can completely understand being a number 1 or number two running back on virtually every Big Sky team. So yeah, seeing him on the roster, big news to me. From there, Trebe, I guess I know you've only been to one practice so far, but hey, you went to practices last year. What's the overall vibe on the field like year 2 compared to year 1?
Yeah, it's like I said, just, expectations are this, more. I know I totally butchered what I was trying to say. They know what to expect, right? Everybody that was there last year, they know what to expect. And the veterans are kind of leading by example, as of last year, during day 1, day 2 of camp, they're still doing like install, some of these guys still don't really know what's going on. Now the first string offense is going out there. It's routine work. Team is faster, things like that. So everything's just moving along quicker and everybody's moving faster year 2 under Eck.
I know Tyler Yelk isn't with Idaho anymore, but I know I talked to Tyler Yelk at signing day event prior to him leaving for the Philadelphia Eagles, being replaced by Bobby J. And Yelk said what they were emphasizing for Idaho this year is that Idaho didn't accomplish anything last season. Which, as a fan who just enjoyed the hell out of last season's ride, that was kind of jarring to hear from a coach. Now, of course, I understand it as a motivational tactic, but also I guess I don't precisely disagree, which is what he was trying to reinforce is, hey, Idaho did not host a playoff game. Idaho did not win a playoff game. They did beat Montana, but they didn't beat any other playoff caliber teams. So what Idaho did was they beat the teams that sucked. They beat the teams that were okay. They did pick up one good win, but there's a lot of good teams in the Big Sky. And if Idaho really wants to be good, like that developmental step is they have to beat the better team. So it's it's a weird tonal thing as a fan after years and years of suffering and having, like, I've got faith in the coaching staff. I've got faith in this roster that there's no reason to expect the annual faceplant Idaho's had for the last 2 decades after their fleeting bouts with success. But I guess one of the things I was curious about is like, the vibe of last year's team to me, it was always, everything was fun. And look, and the team was good. They were disciplined, but like the word I thought of with last year's team was fun. This early, like, do you have a word or a couple words that you'd say it seems like the team is trying to kind of internalize this as their culture?
Let's see. I think fun is a good one. I would say fun and determined. I think fun actually kind of it nails it pretty good, because while they are focused on that, because it's cool that you said Tyler Yelk said that to you, because Jason Eck in a phone interview I did with him on Monday, he was talking about how the guys are starting to believe, and they're getting better. They have all these expectations, blah blah blah, and that's good. But he doesn't know if that's going to be enough to turn around and win 9 games, because last year they didn't beat anybody. So kind of saying the same thing to me. So that is their mindset, but they're also they're a tight knit group. Like I said earlier with Chavez, coming up to me and, being goofy, dapping me up, and Therese Trainer today, he was laughing with me while I was doing an interview with him. It's a fun group of guys. They love the game of football, but they also really want to win, and they're a focused group. So that's a dangerous 2 things to be, I think.
Look, and hey, you brought up Therese, so I'm curious from what you've seen, like how's he looking health wise? Because Trier's a bit of a wild card, as in he obviously didn't make any all-league preseason all-league teams because why in God's name would he this year? But he's 2 years removed from being third team All Big Sky. Look, when Jason Eck was on our show, he actually referenced Therese early as a guy who athletically was standing out. How's he looking?
Yeah, they're being smart with him. He hasn't done really anything. They're limiting his action. He's like maybe doing like a couple rounds of practice. He's not doing any team stuff. He's not out there. But he's coming off a big injury, something that really affected, his overall health and his ability to get back to the game. So Jason doesn't want to, rush him right back in. I think that's smart. And, they're really hyping up Jordan Dwyer right now. So I think Jordan Dwyer kind of has that third wide receiver spot. And I think Therese is going to have to kind of fight to get it back right now.
And hey, Dwyer had his season cut short from injury last year as well.
So yeah, a lot of those guys did. Michael Graves too.
So how's Jordan Dwyer looked?
He's the guy. I mean, outside of Jermaine and Hayden, who those guys are going to be making their plays or whatever. But Jordan Dwyer, I mean, he's probably stuck out more than even those two from the little bits that I've seen today. He's probably been the best wide receiver I've seen in my 30 minutes I've been in the Dome. I'll say that.
So Dallas, we are going to get to an ad read in a second, but before we get there, you had a roster correction that you wanted to get to.
Yeah, I did want to mention one thing we missed, guys. The running back room also has one other addition. George Robinson, he's a 6'2", 225-pound grad transfer from NAU. Now, he didn't play a lot at NAU. I mean, really didn't play a lot at NAU. He had 113 carries in 3 years. Three touchdowns, 404 yards, but was absolutely there, like a short yardage guy there. When you look at the Idaho roster and you see every running back but Art Williams is under 6 feet, and then just the weight discrepancy between George Robinson and, again, Woods and Cummings, the guys you expect to be number 1 and number 2, you don't typically bring in a grad transfer that looks completely different than all the rest of the guys if you don't have a plan for him. My guess is day 1, day 2, day 3, the expectation is George Robinson is probably going to be that short yardage guy in case Anthony Woods doesn't become the all-down future NFL running back that I think everybody hopes he becomes, all of the Pierre Strong comparison that was made last year.
Yeah, and when I talked to Jason Eck at Media Day last year, one of the things he brought up with adding guys from the transfer portal, and you can see it with the composition of his signing and transfer class, is Eck mostly wants to go for developmental dudes. If he's picking up a guy from the transfer portal, it's because the guy has a very good, reasonable shot at earning a starting position or earning a position where the guy will be a contributor right away. So look, we have Andrew Townsend in the comment section say this year's Rashawn Johnson. You know what? Hey, George Robinson, that was a good find, but Dallas, that was a good find. Glad you found you're able to come through the roster for that. Treve, just before we get to another quick ad read, anything you noticed out of George Robinson in your handful of minutes in the Dome so far?
No, I have nothing from Mr. Robinson, but I will be keeping a keen eye on Mr. Robinson the following week when I'm back in the Dome.
All right, Marten, we've got to talk about those dudes from Hughes River. And Dallas, do you have your voice tuned up, or are you still in your own version of rehab?
I'm sucking on a cough drop. It's in there right now, but Colin, I'm going to do my damn best for this. I apologize if this isn't up to par. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main salmon river of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway. You can check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower, camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the entire country. Just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 800-262-1882. Again, 800-262-1882, or check them out online at hughesriver.com.
Okay, Trevan, we've got a few more questions, then we just have some quick bullet point news to hit. So, look, in the future practices you're going to, look, you obviously have hit on the wide receiver room of essentially what you're looking at is, hey, there looks like there's kind of a battle for number 3 of who's going to be that third starter. There's a few dudes to pay attention to. We've hit on, look, everyone knows who the number 1 running back is. It's and we know who the number 2 running back is. So do we have an emergence of a short yardage running back? Hey, we understood that. No quarterback controversy to pay attention to. Javonte McCoy is just the guy. So like a lot of stuff from last year's set. What position groups do you have your eye on that you're going to be trying to be really keyed in on over the next few practices?
Probably starting off with the offensive line. I think that's where it starts. The right side, you got Jason Halbeck and Charlie Vleem, who Jason has said the last 2 times he's mentioned that tackle spot, that right tackle spot. He's mentioned those 2 are battling for it, and he's a walk-on. He's a sophomore. I would like to see maybe some of these other freshmen too. Maybe try to get some of these second, third team reps. Kind of interested in seeing guys like Zach Penner. A lot of these Idaho high school guys are some people that I kind of covered them their whole high school career. I've kind of seen them progress. So I'm interested to see how they're going to be on Idaho's roster. So kind of also the defensive line. I don't think Idaho has a number 1 pass rusher right now. I think that's going to be my biggest take. They're really sold on Malachi Williams. They got Tylen Coleman and Keyshawn James Newby, who Jason X said are their top 3 pass rushers. And right now, that does nothing for me. And, I'm going to kind of see who's standing out really as a whole as that pass rusher. I think D tackle's solid right there with Jakari Larman. He's kind of been the biggest standout on the defense as a whole for me throughout the spring and the little bits that I've been out of practice so far. And I would say the tight end spot too, because Cox right now is the starting tight end. And that second tight end spot is going to probably be occupied by Schuster and Alex Moore, who's coming off an ACL tear. So we don't know how he's going to battle back there, but they got like 9 guys. So, it could really be anybody filling that second spot. So while they don't really have a quarterback controversy like they did last year, there are some really interesting position battles really everywhere. Linebacker, obviously, but we kind of touched on that one earlier.
So when you follow up about the tight ends, so Jake Cox is starting, Jack Schuster's in that room. Haven't seen a ton out of those guys in their time here. There's Chance Bogan and James White that have both been pretty highly recruited guys that we haven't seen much of yet. Obviously, James White being a true freshman. Grad transfer TJ Ivey comes in from Coastal Carolina. He has 5 catches his entire career. Yeah. So I'm assuming blocking only from that guy. Do you have any idea what the thought of the tight end position is going to be this year? Obviously, the receiving room is loaded. It's tough to play 2 or 3 tight end sets when you have to get the ball out to such a loaded receiver room.
That's what I'm saying. I can't imagine them doing much 2 tight end sets, but it's something that Jason's brought up a lot in interviews that I've done with him, talking about who that second tight end is going to be. So that kind of leads me to think that there might be, a decent amount of 2 tight end sets, but you would think maybe that's only going to be in goal line situations, short yardage stuff. But I would imagine if they're trying out a tight end, it's only going to be 1, and probably be Jake Cox, and he's probably going to be having his hand in the dirt a lot of times.
Yeah, it's impossible to gauge anything on Alex Moore, obviously, because blown an ACL sucks. Last we'd heard his rehab was on track, and he'd be ready for the start of the season. But the thing I do want to bring up though is I know Jason Eck, they at South Dakota State they did a lot of 2 tight end sets, but I also want to bring up that Eck has talked forever about he doesn't have a system he has in advance for people to fit into necessarily. He wants the system to reflect the talent that they have. So I guess, Trevan, I am going to say I accept everything. I accept Jason Eck bringing up 2 tight end stuff with you all the time. I accept that is something he obviously wants to do. I'm going to be floored if that's something he actually ends up doing a ton this year, because the talent, like Dallas said, the talent on the roster right now is not a put down to the tight ends. It's just we don't have a bunch of potential all-league tight ends on the roster. But we do have some pretty damn good receivers who are going to need the ball, and I expect. I honestly expect Idaho's going to put up a shit ton of points, and I just don't see the tight ends doing a ton of that.
They do got a lot of them, though. Got like 9 of them, I think. Just insanity.
The stats department does confirm 9 tight ends on the roster.
Yeah.
Good God. Okay, well, look, I'm going to move on from that point. We'll hit more of that in the actual season preview. We do have a couple kind of small bullet points to hit. One's related to the athletic department, which is Associate Athletic Director Matt Marten is, in not too long, no longer an Associate Athletic Director. He's accepted a job as the Athletic Director at UC Upstate. So congrats to Matt Marten. I know Matt Marten was a dude a lot of people, myself included, thought, hey, if Terry Golick retires pretty dang quick, I'd be stoked to have Athletic Director Matt Marten. Golick's going to be staying around for obviously around at least 4 more years because she's part of that D1 council, and those are 4-year terms. So Matt Marten, congrats. Dallas, anything you want to add?
I mean, from what little interactions I had with him, really great dude, really bummed to see him move on. I mean, also super happy for him, but definitely one of those guys that we were hoping was going to be around in Vandal Gold for quite some time.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, the big thing, dude. And hey, Kevin Marshall in comment section, Spartanburg from Moscow is a very interesting choice. Yeah, but you know what? I expect a lot of those dudes say like, hey, if I can run the show, there's only so many of these options. I don't know when the next one comes. Like you said, congrats to Matt Marten. Honestly, Rack of Tit 69 asking for a veggie update. No veggie update. Sorry. First off, veggies are done.
I was say, do we know that veggies are even going to be around anymore? That's the
Marten has something queued up. He really wants to bring up. He's playing. No one can see it unless you're us, but he's been playing.
Let's do it. Veggie update, bitches.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't even see this. This is news to me.
Yeah, Marten. This was really important to Marten to continue to bring this up. Oh my God!
Did you do this for me, guys?
Yeah. So if you're a listener who's not watching live, Marten queued up a graphic from the Western Colorado University Athletic Department webpage, which says, "Welcome, Coach Claus," which is say Zach Claus is now the head coach at Division II Western Colorado. The Western Colorado's mascot is the Mountaineer. So now Marten is wanting to know, are we going to have a Mountaineer minute again, like we used to back when Alex Boatman was also on the show? And I am going to say, look, we usually do these decisions as a group. No, we're not doing a goddamn Mountaineer minute. This is the Mountaineer minute. This is the last time we're going to talk about him. Captain 58 in the comment section, D2 pipeline. Yeah. Oh my God, guys. You know what? We try to move on. But we just keep getting pulled back. Dallas, you obviously
for the 4 to 8 people that really, really liked the veggie jokes and the right track jokes and the last 4 years of just slam your head into a brick wall misery. Go check out the press release about Zach Kloss being named the head coach, because holy shit, you're going to get dizzy from the spin zone.
Okay. Yeah, look, Trevan, now listeners are not going to see this, but Trevan's listed title on our screen right now is Right Track Guide. So your thoughts on the one and only edition of the Mountaineer Minute?
What were they last year? Because, you know,
why in God's name do you think we know that? Like,
Zach Kloss can only put them on the right track to put them on a positive, positive win season.
Racketits, piggybacking off of Captain 58, he'll recruit well at D2. Yes, lot of background there. A lot of background there.
He actually might be. They went 4-22.
Yeah,
that's that's a perfect Zach Kloss record. He might maintain the status quo over there, but
they might even improve on that.
They being Western Colorado, for specificity's sake. And Trevan, I guess my question is, how are you handling the fact that what the right track you were on last season isn't going to be part of your future?
Well, the track is just taking a detour to Western Colorado. The track keeps going. It's just now wherever Western Colorado University is located.
Okay. So now that Marten completely derailed the show, he now wants us to switch topics. So producer, you're welcome. Other thing Marten wanted to bring up is, Ty Graham had been former Vandal football player, finished his career at Eastern Washington, dudes from Cheney. He had been working in the ticket department for University of Idaho. He has accepted a position at Lewis and Clark State College as an assistant athletic director of marketing. So congrats to Ty for moving up in athletic administration too. That's another Vandal moving on up. And obviously, I think he's going to be making Lewis and Clark, their athletic department, better. It was fun having Ty on as part of the athletic department here. One of my favorite things to do was on my lunch break to every once in a while call the ticket office, pretending like I was going to order tickets when I already have them, so I could ask Ty a couple football questions. So congrats, Ty. Trevan, Dallas, anything else you want to add here?
I mean, not much more than what we've already said. Congrats to Ty. I, for one, I'm a big fan of seeing there's been the fresh blood injected into the athletic department and honestly the football program, and we're seeing it continue to be injected. Men's basketball, women's basketball, etc. It's really nice to see some of that new blood that's been here for a couple of years moving on to better opportunities. I think that's a good niche for Idaho to be in if people are taking bigger and better jobs. Yeah, I mean, Idaho is obviously a bigger job than LCSC, but Ty Graham going from the ticketing office to assistant athletic director over there, it's really nice to see the faces that are coming in and helping improve and turn Idaho's athletic department around. It's nice to see them moving on and continuing on to bigger and better things. I think that's a really good precedent for this athletic department.
Okay. Last thing we're going to hit, it's kind of an ad read, kind of not. Marten, can you cue up the walk-on webpage? Got to bring this up, dude. So Walk-On Apparel, their website, if you want to check them out, is walkon-apparel.com. And all of us, Dallas is showing his Dome Sweet Dome shirt. Marten is kind of showing his walk-on shirt that is blending into his brick background. But I'm going to show you guys mine. Kind of. I have the Tribe for the North shirt that I'm going to fail to show you the whole thing, but that's the logo we got. But look, I'm bringing this up because Walk-On is kind of a sponsor, kind of not. But look, they're run by the dudes who run Weber State Weekly. So Walk-On is local-ish, as in Big Sky. And look, they have a ton of licensed kick-ass apparel for a handful of schools, Eastern Washington included, Chattanooga included. But the one I got to tell you guys, I talked to Colby Peterson. He's the dude who runs it before the show. Idaho fans are easily ordering the most walk-on apparel. And keep doing it if you have. Well, do it if you have not, and if you are thinking about getting a second shirt, do it. There's 4 Idaho shirt options so far. Each shirt has multiple colors, and they're all graphic designs you can get absolutely nowhere else. Full disclosure, they're infinitely better than anything the Vandal store carries as well. They're 60-40 cotton polyester blends. They're not going to shrink a ton. The fit to me kicks ass. But part of why I wanted to just bring this up, talk about Walk On for a second, is I just think it kicks ass that we have non-Vandals who are deciding, hey, we need some better Idaho apparel out there. And like Walk On has the Dome Sweet Dome shirt, which Dallas has on, which has the Kibby Dome, Kibby Dome in the background. I've got the Tribe from North, which has Joe Vandal and Script, Tribe from North underneath. Racketit 69 is going to be emotionally attached to that Water Tower shirt, which actually I think that Water Tower shirt kicks ass. I really want it as a sticker. But the emblem there is awesome. Marten's got the Idaho throwback helmet tee. But easily, Vandal fans have been supporting Walk On the most out of any of the other schools combined. So keep doing it, guys. The more we support Walk On, get kick-ass graphics, the more it justifies making more Idaho stuff. So walkon-apparel.com. You can also find them on Twitter as well. Support them.
Well, and don't forget, it's all officially licensed too. So you are also supporting the school. This isn't like knockoff bootleg merch that is just cool and funny. You are also supporting the school here. So if you got a couple extra bucks to kick around and you're looking for some nice, really high quality t-shirts, I'm a t-shirt snob. I wear t-shirts about 364 days out of the year, and I love this t-shirt. Super soft, super comfy. It fits great. I'm a fat ass, and it actually kind of slims me quite fittingly. It's nice.
Yeah, Kevin Marshall in the comments section. I bought the helmet shirt, and Dallas, I'm glad you brought it up so that I could follow up. Yeah, dude, no, their shirts are fitted. So they're not super boxy where your shoulder cut is down to your elbow. Like, no, these are nice looking shirts. Colby and everyone at Walk On did a kick-ass job. So support Walk On. We're approaching the close of the show. Dallas, any last points you want to hit on?
Only because I've never gotten to ask, because this is the first time I've actually gotten to be on a show with Trebe. In all the multiple times you've been here, I have been off in the distance. Why are you a Jacksonville Jaguars fan?
Oh, you decided to go with the Jags instead of the Blue Jays, which the Jags, to be fair, have a way better story than the Blue Jays. So the Jags, I started liking football because I had a PSP back in the day, and I got the game NFL Street 2, and the best running back in that game was Fred Taylor. And I became attached to Fred Taylor, and for some reason, Byron Leftwich was also cracked in that game. So from then on, the Jags have broke my heart for years to come, but now we might be good. The Jags and the Vandals are actually very similar. So it's kind of weird that like I cover a team that's on the rise and the Jags are on the rise. So it's kind of nice.
You heard it here. I'm pretty sure that Trebe just said it. If Jacksonville wins the Super Bowl, Idaho wins the FCS championship. So if you don't have an NFL team, time to root for the Jags, I guess. Pretty sure that's exactly what you said. I heard it.
Yeah, Jags win the bowl, and then the Vandals are going to Frisco.
Yeah, so, hey, to close out in the comments section, Steve Kurtz, thanks, Gents, go Vandals. Thanks, Steve. Captain 58, the real question about the Lamar game, which is Idaho's week 1 opponent, is where are we all getting barbecue in Beaumont, Texas? That is a great question that I cannot yet answer. Jason Mayer saying soccer this week. Look, and he's stepping on our toes because we're going to, of course, become the #1 podcast devoted to Columbia Basin College soccer, thanks to a certain Mayer family member joining that team. Captain 58 says masochism in relation to Trevan support being a Jaguar fan. Jalen Drake, I'm a Jaguar fan too. Let's go.
Oh,
Jason
wow,
Mayer,
crazy.
O's 13, Toronto 3. Obviously talking about baseball.
Yeah, well, you know,
Look,
I was gonna say, I honestly don't watch a whole lot of baseball. I'm a big Canada guy, you know. I just Letterkenny, Trailer Park Boys, go Canada.
Well, on that note, guys, thanks everyone for coming on to check out Tubs of the Club. brought to you by Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey. We're going to take next week off. So make sure you watch this. And we also want some time to develop so we have actual reporting to talk about for fall camp. But our basic schedule is in a couple weeks, we have our Big Sky Conference preview. The week after, we have our Idaho season preview where we go through every single week of Idaho football, make our own projections. And then after that, guys, we preview the Lamar game. So season is picking up. If you haven't bought your tickets, go ahead and get them. Otherwise, hammer that subscribe button. Help us out. The more when we get to 1,000 subscribers, YouTube has to start paying us at least something. Or support us at patreon.com/Tubs at the Club. That's also where you can become part of our #OnlyTubs Discord, which is we're right about the point where it's good, where the traffic there picks up exponentially. So thanks everyone for joining us, and till a couple weeks, roll around, go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.